Hey everyone, welcome to the Canadian Saddle Hunter. I am your host, Steve Atkinson, and in today's episode, we are talking to Paul Agostini, who, as far as I know, is Canada's first hunting saddle manufacturer. Today's episode is brought to you by True North Mobile Hunting Gear. Go light, go strong, go True North. Stick around, we have a great show for you. And I am happy to be with Paul Agostini, as far as I know, Canada's first saddle hunter manufacturer.
Maybe. I hope so.
Maybe,
That'd be kind of cool.
The first one I've heard of anyways. So, Paul, would you tell us a little bit about yourself? What's your history in the outdoors? Have you been hunting all your life, or is it something that was more recent?
I grew up as a fisherman. I was a major fisherman, and it's just kind of weird being an Italian boy who doesn't eat fish. Get a lot of the stink eye, but I'm a big fan of fishing. And in high school, I got into, we spent a lot of summers when I was a kid up north. So in high school, I joined the outdoors club like anybody else. And I built my first fly rod, and I just kind of snowballed to be a big fly fisherman as well. Later on in life, family did a fishing trip up north and we were going to go back to do a moose hunt. So I'm like, okay, maybe it's time I get into hunting. And this is probably like 10, 15 years ago. So I did all that, got my first gun, and the trip was canceled. And then a year later or so, I got a bow. But in between that time, a buddy of mine who's a big duck hunter, he's like, dude, just get a shotgun. I'll take you out. We'll put a dent in the population. It's awesome. And I'm kind of glad I started hunting that way, than opposed to sitting in a tree stand for hours on end. Mm-hmm. I think it's a really good introduction that if anybody wants to hunt and not discourage them and get that passion, is to do maybe small game or upland bird, a little more action, right?
Yep. Totally.
And then maybe step into the whole big game where you're sitting and waiting, because that could discourage a lot of people. From there, it was just, years of just bow hunting every time I went to his property. And what really blew up this whole saddle hunting thing was maybe last season or the year before, I've been seeing these guys do it online because I watch a lot of YouTube. And I rock climb for a lot. Oh, got an alert.
Stay at home order, me too.
Yeah, you got the alert. I rock climbed for a lot of years. So when I saw this, it was like a no-brainer. It's just basic fundamentals of climbing, and I'm glad I got that training with rock climbing because it kind of imprinted a lot of the safety issues, with double checking things.
Yes.
And so I made, and I don't condone this. You're up to your own if you want to try it out and go the cheap DIY way. But doing a little research, I got myself a cheap $40 saddle from Amazon. Mm-hmm. I got a piece of canvas, doubled it up, and just made a sling out of it, tied some knots, tied some rope around those knots, and made it safe. The knots went to, obviously, your tether, your locking carabiner, and then my rope, my tether would, tie in with figure 8 knot into my saddle as a backup.
Yep.
Right. Just in case. And it was great, but I was readjusting. It was great. And as soon as I got the platform, and I was just standing on top, pegs of my climbing sticks. But as soon as I got the platform and the saddle, it was like night and day.
Oh yeah.
And it was kind of, I don't like to say it, but it was nice that I had this free time. I wish obviously we all didn't, but I did get to hunt quite a bit this fall. And I saw more deer on public land than I did in the property that I hunted out by Rice Lake area.
Wow. And
it was just that one little spot where we hunt at, because the other spots we always retreat it for turkey or other things, and we're always duck hunting out there, right? Yep. But because I was going up to Barrie a lot and I was exploring a lot of the Simcoe County properties on public land, mm-hmm. The best thing about saddle hunting is I could just walk into the woods as far as I want. I have maybe 20 to 30 pounds worth of gear on my back. You're wearing your saddle. And my biggest problem is deciding which tree to go up.
Yes.
Because you get indecisive, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Sometimes options can be your worst enemy. You're like, well, if I get that tree there that I have, it comes from the left. If it comes east to west, there's that knoll right there. If I choose that tree, there's a branch. And this one here.
Taking out your powder, your milkweed. Okay, wind's going that way. 100%,
100%.
Yeah, and and it just snowballed into what it is now. And I kind of wish this was around a long time ago. I don't think I ever would have bought a tree stand. I have two of them up on the property that we barely see deer on, but I see a lot of them on my trail cameras, either at night or when I'm not there. It's just the way
Yeah.
it goes.
Yep.
But just the cumbersomeness of setting up a tree stand if you want to go deep in the woods, if you have no private land, it's just, man, it's just awesome.
Yeah.
You get so many options.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. That's what drew me into it. It was actually, I had a self climber, and one morning I was at a fairly new piece of property that I was hunting, and I was out there and it was dark, and I was putting on the bottom piece, and all of a sudden I just dinged two things together because it's dark, right? And you have your top and the bottom, ding two pieces together. Less than a second later, I heard that snort and crashing. It was probably like 40, 50 yards the other side of the tree. And I'm just standing there thinking, I might as well just go home. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, whereas the saddle, being able to go and the versatility is just great. How has your hunting style changed because of that saddle, being able to go lighter and being able to go anywhere?
Well, in the beginning of this past season, I was just using a chair and I was going in and sitting, with my back to certain stuff to kind of blend in. And I got busted by a couple deer really close, which was really cool. Like I didn't have a doe tag, and I had a couple does like kind of walk out in front of me. And when that single doe, with the pair kind of got right into my wind channel about 50 yards out, then it started screaming at me. And I was like, oh, wow, I didn't really experience this before. It's kind of cool, right?
Yeah.
And then 20 minutes later, I had 5 yards behind me, 4-point buck, bark at me and do a little hop off. And I was like, oh my God, what do I do? So it's kind of the same, being able just to walk and sit somewhere, but the option of being able now to get elevated was just incredible. I had people walking by me. They're getting within 20 yards, and I'm like, had to grunt at them so I'm not making, conversation noise. And I had to do that, shh, right?
Yeah.
Hey, I'm up here. Just go that way.
Run away.
Yeah, because it is public land, right? But I think the best thing, and a lot of hunters, I think, in tree stands get frustrated with, unless they obviously have private land, they do their homework, they know the deer pass and this and that, so a lot of times we're up in a tree stand, and we're like, man, I wish I was like 50 yards that way, or I wish I was in, that path, right? Because a deer might come out, say 60 yards away more, you see, right? Mm-hmm. And just that jam up of taking that thing down and putting it back up. Now you just ruined that area. So you have to wait till next season. And it's just a lot of work. Mm-hmm. Whereas I've went up trees and I felt like I was on a noodle rod swinging with the wind, mm-hmm. where 15 minutes I'm down and back up another tree. Yeah. Or I'll hunt the morning and then I'll go for a walk in the afternoon, and then maybe I'll post up somewhere else.
Yes.
Like it's so convenient.
Oh, the versatility, I totally agree. I think it changes your ability. That one of the hard parts, like you said, is you have so many choices. Mm-hmm. Sometimes picking the ones, but I found it's been great, even for the wind. Some days where I am down south of London, Ontario, close to Lake Erie, the wind is almost always southwest. And so like on private property, I have sort of my setups set up for that. But if the wind's coming from the north, then I can hunt a different spot. I can move over here. Sometimes it's only like 30 or 40 yards, but it's just that way they're walking that side. So no, I agree.
That's just it. Sorry, go on.
I said, I agree. It just allows you the flexibility and versatility to hunt the optimal location, rather than, well, I guess we have to be in this tree. I hope the deer come by. You can optimize.
I'm going to settle.
Yeah.
Well, these trees have branches, and I can put my tree stand only up on this tree. Mm-hmm. Like the settling part. I remember putting on my first 2 tree stands, and I was like, oh, you're looking around, and you're like, okay. But it's the wind part, like you said, like we all look at the maps before we go out, but then when you get into the field, you do a little puff, you do a little whatever fluff, and you're like, no, wind's swirling or wind's doing this. Mm-hmm. Now you're like, if that was a tree stand, you'd walk out there and be like, what do I do?
Yes.
So that, it's, I think that's the greatest advantage. I think it's going to destroy the tree stand world when it finally comes around. Mm-hmm. Cause it's not fully big in the States. which is
Oh, yeah.
weird.
It's still
Um,
very much in its development.
yeah, because but watching videos and like the guys from Tether, like G2, and some of the guys from the Hunting Public, they always mention like I can't pronounce his name, but he like one of the originators.
Eberhard.
Um, sorry.
John
Yes.
Eberhard. Yep.
Yes. With his sling saddle, and they did that like 20 years ago or more, and it's like a lot of bow guys are DIY guys. We always trying to find a solution, right?
Mhm.
Um, so you know, 20 years in the making to, you know, smoke and mirrors, put a bunch of fabric on it to make it look like it's something that it's not. It's essentially it's a sling, right?
Yep.
Um, but yeah, to what it is now, it's just unfortunate. A lot of people are still skeptical, and up here a lot. And that's what I've been texting you. I'm like, I'm getting guys in your area that want to test out a saddle
Yes.
because they're just not sure.
Yes. Oh, totally. And we right now, obviously dealing with COVID, we're having to figure out what we're able to do, but we're hoping to have events, spoiler alert, hoping to
Mhm.
have some in-person events where people can come in and try on your saddle and try on different equipment and try different stands, even platforms. You mentioned the platform is a total game changer, but do you want a little Scout, or do you want a Predator, which is in the middle, or what's the trophy
Well,
line?
there's the extra large for Tether, and then there's Trophy Line
The
has a pretty
Mission,
cool
yeah,
one.
the Mission one, yeah,
Yeah,
and it's
and
quite big.
it's all preference at the end of the day. Like, I know I just got what I got, but I really overdo, because I'm somewhat indecisive. I really overdo my research. Like when it came to my bag, I got a little chart going, a bunch of different bags, pros and cons. One guy on YouTube, if you YouTube Google search or whatever you call it, ultimate ultimate was it ultimate platform or no ultimate saddle, sorry, comparison type thing. He has a great video doing like all the saddles on the market almost.
Yeah, Mad Hunts or something like that.
I can't remember. Guy with glasses,
Yeah, I know
color.
what you're talking about.
Yeah, and he has a chart that you get, a PDF,
Mhm.
right? And I was sharing that with a bunch of people when I first got my saddle. And then there's also another one. He does an ultimate like platform, and he has like 20 different platforms or setups, you know, sizes,
Yes.
comparison, and whatnot. So the reason, like the information is there, people just make the effort. But then it's at, do I pull the trigger? I haven't seen it in hand. I'm used to going to Cabela's or Bass Pro or my local sale or whatever to physically see this item,
Mhm.
you know, and we don't have that option. So
Yeah, no, for sure. That actually leads to my next question is, in your mind, what is the biggest obstacle that you have faced as a Canadian saddle hunter? And you may have just answered it, but
it's two parts, I think. It's not being able to see something physically, but a lot of people get over that, I think, and they just pull the trigger and test it out because if they don't like it, they can resell it. There's always someone else that's just as mad as them that will buy it, right?
yep.
You know, it is a new addiction, let's just say.
Absolutely.
But I think the biggest hurdle is reason why, and I'm sure your other questions will ask this question, or I'm kind of answering it. Not being able to get it locally,
Mhm.
right? And just like, oh, I don't want to spend that money getting it from the States. You know, I hate thinking that a product is American made, only to find out when it hits the border, I'm paying duty on it.
Mhm.
You know, and it's like great. And then you find out that there's a brokerage fee attached, and you're like, Jesus, like, and it just starts adding up and adding up, you
Mhm.
know, and it's just the way it goes, you know.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's, I think for myself, I agree with, they're the exact same, is the inability to get products without paying a ton. That's something that we're trying to address, and hopefully we'll be able to address this year, hopefully this year, if not leading in next year, to be able to get these products into the hands of our fellow Canadians without paying astronomical fees. I know I bought something once. I think it was $120, and I ended up paying, between duty and brokerage fees, I paid like $80 in shipping. So it almost doubled the price of what I bought. And I know, talking to some of the guys like JX3 and Overwatch and people like that, they're saying it's one of the big obstacles. Or Backwoods Mobile, Mike, talking to him, so a guy bought $20 worth of Amsteel products, and it cost like $35 US shipping, and plus he's going to get hit with something else. The guy's spending $80 on
Mhm.
$20 worth of stuff, and so we're hoping
I,
to.
Yeah, don't stay. You don't have to buy brand name. There's a lot of products out there that's exactly the same.
Yeah.
And that's what people get caught up with. And that's like what I use for my saddle. People are like, oh, Dyneema.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, if you do any bit of research, it's the same thing as Amsteel.
Yeah.
Amsteel may use a slightly different formula, but it's the same thing.
Yeah.
You know?
Totally. It's just Amsteel is a brand. It's like Kleenex. Kleenex is a brand. They're tissues. Yeah, no, I agree. So what have you done to try and overcome that? How have you tried to overcome those obstacles yourself?
Because this being okay, being a Canadian, not being able to get stuff from the States cheap, which sucks because when you're local, you could buy something for $1 American and have it shipped to you for free because you're within, the States, right? But up here, then you're like, okay, where's local here? What can you get your gear? Now that's the other thing. It's like, well, there's not many distributors. So I did come across some, and I try to share them with people just because it's cheaper than, going to, and I hate to say it because I love the store, MEC. MEC is great and all, and they have great products, but their prices are not like some of these other places I found, like better deals. Amazon was a big help, but I'm not getting wholesale prices. So it cost me a lot to make a saddle. It's unfortunate, right? And I think that's maybe why part of the reason other people haven't done it is it because maybe the overhead's too high for the return. But I was just tired of, paying all these top dollars that I just made myself one instead, and other people were interested. So
the challenge of what I'm hearing you say is the challenge of getting the equipment, being able to try it on, put it on yourself. That's what led you to make your own saddles. And tell us about your first saddle. The first time, I mean, obviously your very first one you made, like you said earlier, out of a rock harness and some pieces of canvas and rope, but your first real saddle, what was that process like? Like, was it stressful? Was it frustrating? Was it fun? What was going through your head?
Well, it was like, it took me a while to pull the trigger on it because it was like getting close to November and the season's almost over. Right. Mm-hmm. And then I order it. And then the States, it's like taking forever. Mm-hmm. And then Tether has a weird shipping process where if a part of your order is ready, they'll ship it, but not the whole thing. So you can't use it until you get the whole thing. Right. It's kind of weird. But when I got it, I was like, okay, this is great. Let's go do it. And I just took the plunge. So yes, I'm going to say to everyone, and I tell them when they buy a saddle, test it out on the ground. For me, I kind of didn't because I have some experience with getting up to heights and ropes and this and that I was still nervous. Don't get me wrong. Anytime when you get new gear, you're always nervous. Yeah. Trust the gear. And if you're worried about that, put in an extra stopper knot or put in an extra safety knot or something, right? And then when you get past that, you build some confidence, man, you're going to be swinging up in that tree all day if you're bored.
Yeah.
Just going around, testing it out. It's fun. Like it's so much fun. And you think those guys that went up telephone poles weren't worried at first?
Yep.
But they're up there doing their thing, right?
Yep.
As long as you just, double check everything and just trust your gear, you'll be fine. But I do tell everybody, I'm trying to do my part to educate them. Like I put a little booklet and I tell them to read it. The do's and don'ts, read the bold, important things. I'm sure I've missed something. I'm sure someone's going to criticize it. Going back to the hurdle part is, I think the biggest challenge, sorry, to finish off that one, backtracking, is people's awareness. Obviously, they can't get it in hand. They're skeptical. There's an old stereotype. And I get some criticism from people being like, no, I hear things, death trap in the sky. Mm-hmm. And I'm like scratching my head going, how dangerous a tree stand is?
Yes.
Compared to saddle? There's probably a greater chance you'll hit ground in a tree stand. And even if you wear a harness, those guys who wear a harness, high five to you. Because I got friends I don't, and I look at them going, just slip and you're done.
Yep.
Right?
Totally. I mean, it's one thing with the small ones, but who actually wears a harness in a ladder stand? Like almost no one. Some of the guys, good for you. But most guys out there, when they go, they climb up their stand and they just, up the ladder and they sit there. Hardly anyone wears the harness.
I think being a rock climber is the reason why I wear one.
Yeah. That's excellent. But your average Joe, your average Jane going out there, they don't. And that's one of the the reasons I started originally saddle hunting is because I was on a small platform and I'm standing there and I'm thinking, as a deer was walking my left to right, if I wasn't paying attention, if I moved my left foot 6 inches forward, I fall. Even though I had a harness and stuff like that, that's not going to be pretty. This is not going to be a good thing. And the safety is actually what led me to the saddle. And then the versatility. And as I began to do it more and more, you realize the advantages, like we said, the versatility. But I think that saddle hunting is by far the safest way that you can hunt from an elevated position.
Yeah, and to snowball on what you were saying about the safety part with the harness, even though you're wearing a harness in a tree stand, what a lot of people don't know, and some people do, and when they do know that, they kind of think saddle hunting's the same, which is not. Mm-hmm. When you're wearing when you're wearing a harness for tree stands, if you actually look at them, they're designed a way to kind of like suspend your body like a puppet when you fall.
Yep.
So now all your weight with gravity, is going down towards your legs, and those straps are cutting off the circulation on the major artery.
Yes.
So there's a warning there, and usually good harnesses, and just as people that don't want to change over should know this, should come with a strap attached to your harness that you take out, you clip in, and you put your foot in there so you can stand up and relieve that pressure. Because after 15, 20 minutes or so, whatever the rating is, you could possibly die if no one's there to help you or if you can't get down. So great, it saved you from the fall, but now rock climbing harness are a lot safer because they're taking you from like the middle section. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of distributing your weight and you're not pinching off, your body as much. I'm sure over time it will, because I can't remember, and I'm sure you get criticized for this. This was a while ago, them saying, you shouldn't be up there too long hanging from it, but rock climbers climb mountains for hours and hours with a harness, and they don't have that life-threatening problem, right? So there's a misconception there. And like you said, it's so safe. Like I get criticized sometimes, not personally, but just our practice of saddle hunting from like tree climbers, and I love the fact that they're taught with safety, but then they can get a little condescending, being like, had one guy, I won't say his name because I don't know it, but I was just trying to ask information before I started all this, on, rope specs and this and that, and trying to tell him what I was doing. And he's like, well, how do you know that tree's safe? I'm like, dude, hunters have been going up trees forever and they didn't take a, arborist course. So like pump the brakes a little bit.
Yeah.
I get it. You're going up a tree stand. You're going, cutting down giant chunks. You don't want to get hit. You're moving a lot. There's a lot of rubbing. There's a lot of this, a lot of that. What people don't know is you're going up in a saddle and you're tying in with a static rope. And a static rope, to people that don't know, is a rope that doesn't stretch. Mm-hmm. So even if you were to fall, if your platform would give out, you're not going anywhere. Exactly.
Just swinging
like going like a half a foot swing to the tree and you're sitting there and you're going to be like, what now?
Yeah.
Now to go back to that safety, what I try to tell people, and everyone can do it differently on YouTube. There's so many different ways to get up a tree, one sticking, aiders, blah, 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 is I personally like to have my platform kind of close to my steps. Mm-hmm. Right. So if it does ever kick out, I can get down to it. But I also carry, now I'm carrying 35 foot of rope, and that would be my rappel line. So God forbid, I do, lose a platform or a step and I can't get down, at least I could tie to the tree, hook up my ATC and rappel down, and then, figure everything else. Because when you're by yourself in the woods, you got to think about these things.
No, 100%. That's something that, again, with these saddle hunting events that we're hoping to have, is to teach some of these things. I know personally, something I do is I practice worst case scenario things. Yeah. I started first, it's a couple feet off the ground. All right, I have no stick. I've slung down. Now, what do I do? Both things. Okay, I have a lineman's belt and a tether. How can I get down the tree just with this? I have an extra carabiner, and practice that, because you don't want to be practicing that when it's -10 and pitch black, or trying to do that the first time. You want to be comfortable with it. I think safety is it definitely has to be paramount. And I appreciate that it's great to hear as a saddle manufacturer that you have that priority. Just to get us back to these questions here, what would you love for people to experience by using one of your saddles, knowing that you come from a climbing background, safety is a priority. What would you like for people to experience when they're sitting in a steamy saddle?
Just the comfort. Like my biggest thing is getting feedback from people who bought my saddle going, this thing is amazing. It's comfortable. Saddle hunting is so cool. Thank you. And that's it. Just give it a try. And that's all I want is to just try if you don't like it, it's not for you, get a different saddle. It's very subjective. It might not fit you right. I try to communicate with the people to give them a saddle to fit them. I think the biggest thing we see on social media is people buying saddles, reselling them because they don't fit right. People unsure, like they have, 3 different sizes that, puts you within it. Yes. But unless you're that sweet size within that saddle, then you're still going to have some discomforts, right?
Yes.
A lot of stuff's not catered to us. I know the northern states gets the same climate as us, but we like to wear bibs. It gets cold.
It gets cold.
Deer hunters up here like the cold because there's more action.
Yes.
Where the deer down south, they're fine walking around with a margarita in their hand because they're always used to those temps, right?
Yeah.
But for my saddles, it's comfortable. And then I just kind of warn people when they get a back strap and I go test them out. I'm like, yeah, don't blame me if you fall asleep in them because they can get comfy.
Yes.
They do get a little worried about things. And I'm like, like you said, test it out the ground. I would say put yourself in the worst situation just to build confidence, how to rebound from it. Right. I don't know. Like, I just want them to be happy. It's a very gratifying thing to see someone, respond to your saddle in a positive way and something you made. It's almost like you made dinner for your spouse or your friends. Like that's amazing. You feel good.
Yes. Oh, that's great. That's great, Paul. It's I'm looking forward personally to trying out one of your saddles and shimmying around in it. And I agree, like you said, practice and get comfortable. And
I like criticism because, like I said, these are kind of custom, right?
Yes.
Little mods make a difference.
Yep. One of the things, even along that, is where you attach your bridge. If you have like a little bit lower or a little bit higher, like if you with the Prussics, there's so many different things. The height of your tether affects your comfort, and some things that again we want to be teaching at some of our events. And just as you experience something, it's sometimes I think of it as you're kind of like a pickup truck, a little compact car, a motorcycle, and then a school bus. They're all vehicles, but they're different. And who you are and your comfort level of driving a saddle, maybe you're a motorcycle guy and you want just that little Eberhardt, 3 seat belts strapped together and, slick and light. Or maybe you're the RV guy and you want a JX3 Lazy Boy put up against the tree, or maybe you're in between, but getting some time in these, or hopefully in a steamy saddle, and then if you're comfortable in that, then spend some time. Quickly, tell us one of your favorite experiences while saddle hunting, either harvest or sometime you were sitting in a saddle out in the woods. Share one of your favorite experiences while saddle hunting.
My luck wasn't that great this past season with the saddle.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot, but I think the best part was, I had a coyote run by. That was kind of cool. And just getting, me busting other people walking close by.
Yeah.
Right. Because that just shows like your stealth up there, having 3 does walk 60 yards away. You're trying to grunt at them, but they have no idea where you are.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool that you have that. Right. And I walked 2K into the bush to do that.
Yes.
Without breaking my back.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that was like kind of the cool experiences to it, just that versatility that we always go back to. Like, and that's the thing I keep on telling people, like the greatest thing is you'll never own a tree stand again.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. And
I agree.
I get it. Like some people like to sit, but you're sitting. You just have to try it out and you'll be surprised. Like, oh yeah, it is kind of the same.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I find with a saddle, it's much more, I feel like I'm part of nature rather than sitting in nature. And it's almost the same, but it's different. When I'm there and I'm leaning against the tree and I feel like I'm part of it, where you're sitting on the front or standing on the front, you're in nature rather than part of nature. And that's like one of the biggest things.
I know other hunters experience this too, just because you're all camoed up. but having this critter come so close to you and not realize what you are, like squirrels or like an owl or falcon, whatever, right? It's kind of cool when you're out there being one with nature, just being up there, right?
Yeah. No, for sure. It's great. What is some of the best hunting or saddle hunting advice that you have received so far?
Haven't really got any advice because all my, sorry, let me take that back actually. The most advice I got was what you're trying to do with your Saddle Hunter forum, but from the Americans, right? Asking questions about packs, what platform, what saddle, and just getting and do my research. And a lot of people do help. Some people could come off as a little elitist, but it's like, listen, man, I fly fish too, and I know there's people like that. Just settle down.
Yeah.
Right? We wear pants on the same way. It's good getting that little feedback to help you learn. But I think my advice to people is just ask questions. Ask questions because you're not gonna learn, right? There's one guy that reached out to me, 65-year-old guy up just north. I think he's like an hour north of Thunder Bay. And he's like, hey man, I love what you're doing. I stay in shape. Is this good for me? Because I have no videos or anything to show how to use it, even though there's like information online. And I kind of want to make a video just to be like, guys, this is how you put it on, quickly, just to be like, show them if it's for them or not, right? It's how easy it is to go up a tree, and at your events, we're going to do that, but not everyone can attend, right?
No, for sure.
Yeah, just ask questions. And he asked me a lot, and I try to give him as much information as possible. And I'd love for him to test someone out. I told him what sites to go to. Maybe there's someone in your neighborhood that has one that you can test out, and then go from there.
Yeah, no, that's really good advice. What besides asking questions, and obviously besides buying a Steenie saddle, what's the number one thing every saddle hunter should do during the off season? Although turkey hunting from a saddle is a lot of fun, but getting ready for, typically people hunt deer from saddles. What's the number one thing every saddle hunter should do to get ready for this upcoming season, whether it's turkey or deer in the fall?
I want to answer that question, but you've tried turkey hunting already from a saddle?
Yes, I have. Last year and the year before.
And successful?
Yes, it's great. I had a turkey 6 yards. It was so close. I could hardly draw the bow. I was sitting there kind of behind the tree and waiting for it to turn the other way, because it came from the side, and actually a coyote came across the field, and it was the Tom had kind of hung up about 45 yards away from my decoys, but a coyote came, and I thought, oh, that's it, he's gone. But the opposite happened from what I expected. The Tom came and it charged my Jake and hen decoy, and it almost charged the coyote. It was trying to scare the coyote away, and then it came over and started pecking my hen decoy. But it came right in front of me, so it was about 6 yards away, and I had to wait until it turned before I could draw my bow. And it's great because you're sitting behind the tree, right? You're sitting like this here, and that's all the turkey can see.
But are they looking up at you by chance?
So I was almost on ground level. I was on ground level behind it.
Okay.
You can go up. It just makes the angle and the calling different. But I just was behind the tree rather than sitting in front of it with a shotgun. I'm just behind it with a bow.
Yeah, I was concerned about line of sight with being elevated, because deer's always got their head down looking for food. Unless you make a noise, they'll look up.
Yeah.
But turkey, they're always looking for predators from everywhere, right?
Yeah.
So I was just wondering if being up high would be an advantage or disadvantage.
I think my plan for this year is to kind of go up about 8 feet. I think if I'm up at 16 or 20, they're so good with their hearing. I think they'll notice, especially as it comes close. They'll look up because you're making a call. But if I'm only about 8 feet off the ground, just enough so that they have to do that. It depends on the spot too. There's one spot I'll definitely be on the ground, and there's a couple other spots where I think I'll just be elevated a little bit. That's my game plan for this year, but it's fun. I mean, it's like you said, they're comfortable, and especially shotgun, if you're not bow hunting, if you can be behind a tree and all you have to do is rest your gun against it and just peek out that much, the turkey's only seeing 6 to 8 inches of you rather than the whole thing. So it's good.
It's a good thing you brought that up, because I think other people need to know this as well. You can use it, and I haven't yet, for gun season. I have a buddy who has a saddle and he uses his gun. The guys on the hunting public, I think they use their muzzle loaders.
Mhm.
And you just said yourself, you used your shotgun. Or wait, have you? Sorry.
Yeah, I've actually every time I was in my saddle for turkey, I used my bow. I shot a deer this past year season, muzzle loader from the saddle. It was only
There you
like it was only 32 yards away. Every deer I've shot with a muzzle loader, I would have shot with a bow too. It just I happened to be wearing orange and carrying a gun.
No, but it's good to say because not everyone has a bow. And a lot of guys, and I have friends like this too, like I'd rather use a bow during gun season, depending, because I have a shotgun only season where I hunt.
Yep.
So, well, you could get a sabot, you could get this, you could put yardage on there. Yeah, true. But if that deer is going to walk within 50 yards of you, I kind of like to use the bow instead. It's like, I know I could catch that bass with a bass rod, but I'd rather try it out with my fly fishing rod for the challenge, I guess.
Yep.
It's preference, but some of those guys who are just, gun season, they need to know that because I get those questions. Can you shoot a gun out of it? Right. And you're proof. There we go. Good.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great. It's easier to carry, especially even if people who do drives, if you're hunting, it's also safer. If you're going to do a drive, then every year, it's unfortunate accidents happen and we don't want them to ever happen. But if you're up even 12 feet in a tree, if you just want to carry, 2 sticks or 1 stick and an aider, you can be up at 7 feet and you're a lot safer than if someone's going to shoot and a bullet's going to be a little high. You're going to be safer, and all you have to do is carry 1 stick and you can wear your saddle in there. So it's great for that as well.
Here's another thing, just to go on what you just said a little bit. I personally, at the beginning, I should have mentioned this before, always walked in because I saw one other guy do it when he was collecting his trail cameras. And I'm like, good point. When you're on public land, it's grouse season and rabbit season. So guys are swinging shotguns. If you're all camo with a bow, they don't really see you up in the tree.
Yeah.
So walk in with your hunter's orange hat, and then hook. And I was hooking it on the tree just so people would see me. Like I had 2 guys walk 200, 300 yards making noise. And I was like grunting at them, waving my hat. They saw me, and they're like, oh, but you don't want that swing. And that's kind of another reason why I made, not to pump my product, but I guess I am.
No, for sure, do it.
Daisy chains that we hold our gear out of orange. Yep. I'm not saying you have to use mine or whatever. Just have some kind of orange up there. You know what I mean? Like you don't need to be completely camoed when you're on public land. Like it's cool, it's great, but we know that deer don't see orange.
Yeah.
So
that's a good safety tip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Moving forward.
Yeah.
I just lost track of that question, but I had the answer. What was it?
What is the number one thing every saddle hunter should do to get ready for their upcoming season?
I think checking your gear is the most important thing. And that's it. Obviously stay in shape. If you can't go out that far, don't do it. If you only can go a short distance, fine. Keep in mind, you got to climb a ladder stand of some sort, so you have to be somewhat active in shape. You can't fully let yourself go. I know I have a little bit, but it's COVID. I got a lot of time till the fall to get back in shape, but check your gear. Wear and tear on your gear is probably the most overlooked thing people do in anything. I'm guilty of it for my tree stands. I got straps up there that I don't trust that have been up there forever because I leave them out there all season. But your ropes shouldn't have any kinks in it, should not have any frays in it. Your saddle should not have any like cuts, frays, any abuse to it. All it takes is a little bit of weight or pressure on some of these points that you think are okay, but could eventually tear slowly. And then that's it. Next thing you do, you're waking up somewhere or not at all, right? Yeah, just check your gear.
No, that's very smart. It only takes seconds to do. It would take, this time it takes, minutes to do, but even every time you go out, just quickly check it, make sure everything's good. That's very good.
I think that's the only advice, because at the end of the day, we're always practicing shooting. We're always doing other stuff over the off season, right? So I think the basic thing for saddle hunting is just check your gear. Yeah.
Your gear. That's good. When people want to get a hold of you and get a Steny Gear saddle, how should they do that?
Right now I'm just on Facebook and Instagram. They could just send me a personal message, and You know, if they hate doing messages sometimes, like I do from time to time, I'll give you my phone number. We could talk. Hit me up. I have no problem helping you out whatsoever. I have no problem pointing you in the right direction to get the gear. I send all the new guys, what I do is I send kind of like a PDF of what I use. It might seem a little overdone, but I've also come into situations while I'm up there where it's nice to have some extra things, right? Because you want to maneuver, and in order to maneuver, you need to be safe.
Yes.
So just hit me off on those two things, those two platforms, send me a message. Like, I love helping people out. And even if you don't buy my gear and you go to someone else, as long as I got you into the sport, as long as I gave you some kind of idea what to do or some kind of education, it's still great for me, you know.
That's great, Paul. And I will include links here. Well, thank you, Paul. It's been great chatting with you. I can't wait till some of these things lift and we can get to meet up in person, and I can try out your saddle. We can fling some arrows and share some stories.
Yeah. And I don't know if you want to do this yet, but do you want to tell more people about what you might be planning if it works out?
So yes, what we will
I'm kind of excited about it. And I know some other guys who buy my saddle are going to go to it.
Yes, we are going to be hosting Saddle Hunting Canada events, very similar to the Tethered Teach and Train. We're hosting a Tethered Teach and Train in July 17th, and we are hoping to have at least one, potentially two spring Saddle Hunting Canada events where you can come, you can meet Paul, you can try out his saddle. A couple other vendors will be coming: Vortex Canada, Kershaw Knives, and G5 is one of our sponsors now as well as more coming on. Sit in a saddle, meet other fellow saddle hunters. We're a great community. You can try one of Paul's, you can try a Predator platform, a Scout platform, a Mission platform, all that stuff. You can just ask some questions from people who've been in situations hunting and in the saddle, and I can't wait to actually get them in gear.
Yeah, no, it's going to be great. And I know people are going to have lots of questions thinking I'm a pro. I'm a seasoned veteran, not a multi-season veteran, but I have experience going up in heights and whatnot. And for me, like I said, it was a no-brainer. I'll try to share information. There's tons of information out there. I'm sure guys will find better ways of doing it. It's a very big DIY kind of thing. You know, there's always cheats. There's always ways to make it lighter. This season, I'm going to try out my my climbinators to see if I could lose a stick or two. That's about it. Like, ask questions and then grow from that.
Yep.
Don't just be lazy and sit back and be like, well, he said this. Do more research, prove me wrong, because I'm sure I'm not perfect, you know. And yeah, that's all I got really, guys.
No, that's great, Paul. Again, I appreciate it. So for more information, follow the links below to get one of Paul's saddles. CanadianSaddleHunter.com is where you can get more information on our events, buy some gear, and hopefully give you some ideas to help you get a big buck or turkey, or just get outside and see some nature. Be part of nature rather than just in it. Have a great one, guys. Thanks again, Paul.
And Steve, thank you for doing all this and setting up a Canadian-based saddle hunting community.
Oh, you're welcome.
I know we got them on Facebook, but to have a website going in a home base, a big voice, hopefully everyone can jump on board as well.
Oh, thanks, Paul. I appreciate it.
Yep. All right.
Have a good one.
You too. Take care.
Yep. Bye.